Imagine being laughed at and dismissed because of your circumstances. Now, what if that same person turned out to be a piano legend? What if the joke was on them all along? Stay tuned, because this homeless veteran's incredible story is about to change everything you thought you knew about judgment and talent. You won't believe what happens next. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories like this one, only on Black Visionaries. The sun was beating down relentlessly, casting long shadows over the bustling city streets. Pedestrians hurried past, faces buried in their phones, lost in their own little worlds, moving with a sense of purpose. But among them, sitting on a weathered street corner, was a man with a tattered military jacket, worn and faded from years of use. His name was Jack, but to the busy world that passed him by, he was nothing more than just another homeless person, another face in the crowd, ignored and forgotten. Jack had once been a proud man, a soldier who had served his country with honor, a man who had dreams and aspirations. But life had a way of knocking him down. After leaving the military, Jack's life took a downward spiral. He lost his job, his family, and his sense of direction. The memories of his service, the horrors he had seen, weighed heavily on him, and soon he found himself on the streets. Each day was a battle for survival. He would sit at this very corner, asking for spare change, just enough to get by. But more often than not, people would pass him by without a second glance, just another statistic in the sea of homelessness that plagued the city. That morning was no different. Jack sat quietly, his cup resting on the ground in front of him, hoping for a few coins, a dollar or two to get through the day. The sound of hurried footsteps, the clink of change in pockets, the clatter of busy people moving to their next destination, it was all just background noise to him now. He didn't expect anyone to stop. He didn't expect anyone to care. But then, a group of young people came into view. They were laughing, carefree, walking together as a group, heading to the local cafe down the street. They were all dressed in trendy clothes, their youth and energy radiating from them as they joked with each other. They were talking about their plans for the weekend, about a new movie that was coming out, about everything and nothing all at once. As they neared Jack, one of them, a tall guy with a bright smile, noticed Jack sitting by the curb. He stopped in his tracks, eyeing Jack for a moment, before turning to his friends. With a smirk on his face, he said, "Hey man, you got any change?" Jack lifted his eyes, his voice calm but tired as he replied, "A few dollars would help. Anything you can spare." The young man's face twisted into an amused grin. "Change? You want me to give you change? You know what you could do instead of begging for a few bucks? Why don't you show us something like, I don't know, play the piano or something?" he said, his words dripping with sarcasm. His friends burst into laughter, clearly enjoying the idea of this homeless man somehow playing an instrument in his condition. Jack didn't flinch. He had heard worse in his time on the streets. The mockery didn't bother him as much as it used to. But something about this young man's challenge sparked something deep within him. It wasn't the insult that stung. It was the fact that they thought they could judge him, that they could laugh at him just because of his appearance. "Sure," Jack replied with a faint smile. "I can play if you have a piano." The young man waved his hand dismissively, laughing even harder. "Yeah, right. You want me to believe you can play the piano? Okay, go ahead, impress us, old man. Play for your food." The group chuckled amongst themselves, clearly thinking they were in for a good laugh. But Jack didn't care about their mockery. He stood up slowly, dusting off his jacket. His hands, rough from years of hard living, but still steady, made their way across the street. The group, unsure of what to do, followed him, still half amused and half confused. Jack had noticed an old piano in a small cafe just a block away. It had been sitting there for years, gathering dust, ignored by the patrons who came and went, too caught up in their own lives to appreciate it. But Jack saw it, and he knew this was the moment. This was his chance to show them that appearances didn't tell the full story, that there was more to him than what they saw. The group watched as he walked into the cafe, still laughing among themselves, unsure of what exactly was happening. Jack didn't speak. He simply sat down at the piano, his fingers hovering over the keys. The cafe fell silent, the air suddenly thick with anticipation. The young man who had mocked him stood near the door, arms crossed, eyes narrowing as he waited for Jack to embarrass himself. But when Jack's fingers touched the keys, everything changed. It wasn't just a random note. It was a note that commanded attention. It was rich and full, resonating through the room, capturing the attention of everyone in the cafe. Jack's hands moved swiftly, each note played with precision, his fingers dancing across the keys in a fluid, almost effortless motion. The melody that poured out was beautiful, haunting, and mesmerizing all at once. The group fell silent. The laughter stopped. Their jaws dropped as they watched this homeless man, the one they had mocked just moments ago, play with a level of skill and artistry that none of them had expected. The music filled the cafe, moving through the room like a living thing, wrapping around each person, pulling them into the moment. Jack's fingers never faltered. He played as though he was transported into another world, his body swaying with the music. He wasn't just playing, he was speaking through the piano, telling a story that words could never express. The group stood frozen, caught in the spell of his performance. They had expected a joke. They had expected something to laugh at. But instead, they were witnessing a master at work, a man who had dedicated his life to music and who had not forgotten his craft, no matter how far he had fallen. When the last note finally echoed through the room, the cafe was silent. For a moment, no one spoke. The group of young people stood there, wide-eyed, their earlier laughter replaced by stunned silence. It wasn't just the beauty of the music that stunned them. It was the realization that they had misjudged Jack, that they had underestimated him in the worst way. One of the girls finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Jack opened his eyes and looked around the room, his face serene. "I've been playing since I was a child, before life got in the way." The young man who had mocked him earlier stepped forward, his face flushed with embarrassment. He swallowed hard, his voice shaky as he apologized. I had no idea. I'm sorry, man. That was incredible." Jack gave him a soft smile. "No harm done. You didn't know," he said, his voice calm. "But maybe now you'll think twice before judging someone based on what you see." The group stood there for a long moment, unsure of what to do next. The young man who had mocked Jack earlier said, "Listen, if you ever need anything, I mean anything, I can help. I'll make sure people know about your talent. You shouldn't be out here on the streets." Jack simply nodded. He didn't need their help. What he needed was to show them that there was more to people than their circumstances. That talent, true talent, could not be hidden by appearances. With a small nod, Jack stood up, and without another word, he walked out of the cafe, leaving the group behind. They watched him go, each of them lost in their own thoughts, reflecting on what had just happened. They would never forget that moment, the moment they learned not to judge someone by what they looked like or where they came from. They learned that day that we all have stories we carry, stories that might surprise us, that might change the way we see the world. As for Jack, he didn't stay on the streets much longer. Word spread about his incredible performance, and soon, people who had once ignored him were offering him opportunities to perform, to share his gift with the world once more. Jack had reminded the world of something important, that no matter how far we may fall, there's always something inside us that can rise again. He wasn't just a homeless veteran anymore. He was a piano legend, and the world had finally remembered him for what he truly was. Hey, if you're rolling with the Black Visionaries family, you already know what to do. Smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because we've got more powerful, jaw-dropping stories coming your way that you won't want to miss. Stay inspired, stay strong, and remember, your dignity is never up for debate.